Bulavinakana, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to acknowledge, of course, the chair of Fiji Hardwood Corporation Limited, the board members who are here, also, of course, the PS for Forests, the acting CEO, and the staff members of Fiji Hardwood Corporation. I don't intend to make a long speech. Today, of course, is the launch of the gap analysis report, which essentially is to ensure that mahogany plantations that we have under Fiji Hardwood Corporation actually gets the FSC certification, the Forest Stewardship certification, which is critically important. We know that Fiji Pine has already received the certification, and the idea is to extend that certification to Fiji Hardwood Corporation Limited. As we've said, since the reforms of the mahogany industry in Fiji, with the act that was passed around about 2011, government then, way back then, recognized the fact that Fiji Hardwood Corporation, notwithstanding the fact that it had the largest planted mahogany forest in the world, did not get premium dollar for its mahogany, which I think was a great tragedy. And at that point in time also, Fiji Hardwood Corporation had a debt stock of about $25 million, even though it had this largest planted mahogany forest in the world. Another factor of it, of course, was a tick factor, a positive factor. It was planted predominantly on indigenous land. Largest planted mahogany forest. It was, in other words, we weren't deforesting, virgin forest. It was planted, which is a big deal, on indigenous land predominantly. And of course, it was the fact that it came from Fiji. Our mahogany was not sold at premium price. Our mahogany was not distinguished from other mahogany that was being harvested illegally. Some of them is still today illegally, and of course from virgin forests. And we still today are selling some of that mahogany to South America or Central America, where it gets mixed up with other mahogany, and so therefore the value comes below what it should be sold for. There's no doubt that since the licensing regime that was brought about after the 2011 Act was put in place, that our mahogany has become a lot more, I suppose you can say, inaccessible, where there's a particular regime of people who can only harvest mahogany. That was the critical first step. It is also critically important to have the branding done, to be able to distinguish Fijian mahogany from other mahogany in the world. If you go to Europe and you want to sell mahogany, and if you say it's from somewhere in South America, somewhere in the Amazon, and it's actually from virgin forest, you won't actually get much of a market. But if you say that you brought your mahogany from planted forest, where the resource owners actually get a fair stake in the harvestation of that forest, where you are able to have a certification, where you have actually a licensing regime, then the value of your mahogany goes up. And that is what we are after. Unfortunately, many of the players in the industry do not see that long-term goal or vision or sustainability. They're here to make the money here and now. And that has always been the problem. In fact, that's an overall problem in many parts of the world with the forest industry or timber industry. So today is a very significant achievement, together with the fact that with this board now, the debt stock of Fiji Hardwood Corporation is way below what it ever was. And in fact, I think all the major debts will be paid by the end of this year, which is a highly significant milestone that Fiji Hardwood Corporation has achieved. And that, I think, should be applauded. Secondly, once this gap analysis, the report is put in place, then if you get the mahogany forest certified, you're able to then get Fiji Hardwood Corporation Limited trees then certified, which will fetch much higher value. If anybody, apart from taking a negative approach, if they look at the Act actually says that once Fiji Hardwood Corporation is on a sustainable path, then there would be more proceeds and sharing of profits with the landowners themselves. But of course, Fiji Hardwood Corporation needed to get rid of its dead stock first. Fiji Hardwood Corporation needs to have a very good nursery. It needs to have a very good replantation or reforestation program. Once that is achieved, then we'll be able to share the benefits of that also with the landowners. So those milestones are critically important to achieve before that can be done. There is no doubt there's still some people who are carrying out illegal activities. And it is the responsibility of Fiji Hardwood Corporation to make sure it does not happen. There is no doubt there are some people who actually want to carry out illegal activities or want to bribe people, or may still try and bribe people, may get the classifications changed of the timber, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. All of that are, essentially the hallmarks of what we call a system that may not be up to scratch as far as certification is concerned, as far as transparency is concerned. If you look at some of the other Pacific Island countries in the region, their forests have been raped and pillaged quite significantly. They have had larger forests than us, but the way that it has been deforested is quite tragic. We obviously don't want to be in that situation. And the certification is critically the path to go. The board needs to be able to do what it needs to do. It has a fiduciary duty to the Fiji Hardwood Corporation Limited. Its fiduciary duty is to the company, and they must do the best for the company and for the shareholders. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank all those who've been involved in this particular exercise, in identifying the gaps, in identifying a pathway towards which we can achieve the certification for our mahogany forests. And there's a lot of opportunity for it. And in fact, if we have proper certification, it could in fact be an opportunity for us to do the value adding in Fiji itself. It would in fact attract and make it a lot more attractive for investors to set up plants here to do the value adding in Fiji. And we must try and achieve this. Strategically, that's what we want to do. In the same way, strategically, for example, Jigoko and JIBIC, which is Japan Investment Bank, bought 44% shares in EFL. We actually divested those shares, not because we want to sell those shares, just for the sake of getting the money, but we wanted strategic partners. It took us 3 years to get a strategic partner. And as a result of that, today we have a company that is now well known internationally for its capacity to build renewable energy plants. One of the reasons, for example, that EFL did well last year is because it rained a lot. We were able to use monosavu. Rain is free, it's God's grace. Sunshine is free, it's God's grace. The wind is free, it's God's grace. How we as human beings use the right technology to be able to utilize the renewable energy is what will put us in the right space. So I would urge also the board, in respect of carrying out this gap analysis, as to how we can also take advantage of the fact that there's a lot of technology available to build that into your day-to-day operations. So it's a good story if you're planting and you're also using energy to carry out your operations from renewable energy. Is also a damn good story. The one last point I'd like to make, everybody's aware of the Climate Change Act. The Climate Change Act is a highly significant document for us. Many of the practical parts of the act is not commenced yet, but it's there. We're waiting to build, we're building capacity. Once we build the capacity, we'll be able to implement that particular act. Now, the act also provides an opportunity in the general wider scheme of things to be able to value our forests even when it's not cut down. This is the irony, you see. So far all these years, we don't value our forests until it's cut down. It does not contribute to your GDP unless we have timber. The Climate Change Act actually reverses that. In fact, it says that if you keep the trees in the ground, you're actually placing a value on it through carbon trading. So when FHCL does actually do replanting vast areas, you can actually sell that as carbon credits. And even it may be for 15 or 20 years or 30 years or 40 years that the mahogany tree will stay there, you'll actually get a value for the fact that the tree is staying in the ground. And so carbon trading involves, what we call managing deforestation, good forest management practices. So for all those people who are involved in the forest industry, in the timber industry, and I would also urge, I don't see anybody from the private sector here, but I would urge those for you to reach out to the private sector, for them to actually understand that equation, that there is now value in keeping things in the ground. And forests, of course, fits in, overall in the wider scheme of things. It can also affect the health of our oceans. The Honourable Prime Minister at the moment is en route to the Oceans Conference in Portugal. Now, if you deforest without sustainable management practices, if you then have all the silt running into the river system, then into the sea, if you don't manage your waste systems well, if you have a rubbish dump next to the sea, all of that actually seeps into the water systems. All of that then goes and damages your reefs. So the oceans actually become unhealthy. Your fish life becomes actually unhealthy. So many people have said to me, I don't want to catch a fish from here and eat it. Because, the environment is not safe. So we have to think about the linkage between the forest and the ocean. We have to think about the linkage between the forest and our ability to have access to clean air. We need to think about forests as an opportunity for us to be able to earn a living without actually cutting a single tree. We may cut the tree after 30, 40, 50 years, but there's a way of doing it sustainably. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Chair, once again for the opportunity of being here and giving us the invitation. The close collaboration between all the different agencies is critically important. We are, of course, in a juncture, in globally speaking, where we now see food prices increasing significantly. We have a war out in Europe. We see the price of fuel shooting through the roof. Only about 18 months, 2 years ago, the price of oil, what we call fuel, just was about $22, $25 a barrel, US dollars a barrel. Today it's $120 US dollars a barrel. It looks like it's going to keep on increasing. Ukraine fed 400 million people of this planet Earth, the amount of wheat it produces. Russia, Belarus and Ukraine, between them, produce much of the fertilizer ingredients in the world. The cost of freight between New Zealand and Fiji before COVID was $5,500. Today it's $16,500. There's a shortage of containers in the world. China is still locked down, so there's less containers available, supply-demand issue. So all of these challenges is not something peculiar only to Fiji or the Pacific. It's a phenomena, a global phenomena. And countries that will come out the best out of this particular period will be those that can actually be able to have a long-term vision, be able to think laterally, be able to be strategic, and have a collaborative approach between all the stakeholders. And it is in that spirit that we want this gap analysis to be, in fact, implemented. Dr. FHCL, thank you very much.